we should have sat in one of the rooms. Good morning, and I want to welcome you to our weekly briefing. Four issues that I've been asked to speak to you about. The first issue is the reopening of schools. Today, May 9th, schools will open for the second term after a 1-month holiday. And this is the second time that schools are opening after the disorganization that was caused by the numerous lockdowns relating to COVID-19 restrictions. As a party, we stand with parents who are returning children to school under very difficult economic circumstances. Prices of all goods have risen, and this is the worst economic period for it to take place. Because you remember, because of the numerous lockdowns and a period of 2 years, people's businesses collapsed. So the population was recovering, businesses were recovering, but also people were recovering their lives. So that's when schools now started. And as that recovery was taking place, now we are hit with the escalation of prices of goods. So this is the worst period for any parent to be returning children to school. Of course, in our view, some of the measures that government took during COVID-19, when it was at its peak, some of those measures were hysterical, fearing without evidence, and then they announce something and then they are trying to reverse it. So the FDC therefore appeals to schools, proprietors and management not to turn away children who are reporting for school because of inability to pay school fees and meet other school requirements. In our view, the schools, the proprietors and management should afford the parents an opportunity to pay school fees and other requirements for whole duration of a term. If there are those who can pay at the beginning, we salute them. But those who are unable to pay, please allow them to continue paying installments until the term ends. Because you also live in Uganda, you know what people are experiencing. We also demand that government relaxes on some of its restrictions. There is a requirement that people who are going to sit for, people who are in candidate classes must pay registration fee to UNEP. And I think second term is the deadline. So our own view is that everybody should get registered, whether you have paid or not. And people can even pay when they go to pick their results. But turning away children who have been toiling, who are in P7, senior 4, senior 6. So the requirement that you first pay registration fee before you sit for exams should be waived. There are those who have already paid, but there are those who don't have money. So that requirement needs to be relaxed. And another requirement requiring every candidate to have a national identification card needs also to be relaxed. If there are children who missed registration when NIRA was visiting schools, either you allow them to sit for exams and they register later because they will need to join university and other tertiary institutions, or you get NIRA to visit schools again and have everybody registered. But the government cannot simply announce that if you have no national ID, no NINI number, you are not sitting for exams, as if these children are children of another country. So some of the restrictions that government is imposing also ought to be relaxed. And also enforcement of Ministry of Education standards in schools. You saw some time back when the Honorable Ssemujju was visiting schools and closing them out of excitement there. Because some of the schools were being closed that they don't have PT latrine. So if parents at home don't have PT latrine, So how can you close schools that you are moved by the hygiene? So that hygiene does not exist in many homes in Uganda. So you cannot only enforce it at school. In the past, there was a minister in Mengo whose duty was to make sure every home has a pit latrine, and he was nicknamed Kabuyonjo because he went home to home enforcing it. So if you want to force hygiene as a country, you don't start at school. It's important to enforce hygiene at school, but children who have no hygiene, who are subjected to no standards at home, you can't protect them by enforcing those standards at school, because they will be subject to the same conditions when they return. So we think the Ministry of Education need to relax some of the requirements for the school to continue operating until, as a country, we have fully recovered from the effects of COVID-19. Then you begin applying these conditions. The second point that I've been asked to speak to you today is regarding to investment. While as a party we welcome foreign investors into Uganda, the FDC would like to warn particular investors who have joined Mr. Museveni and his government in freezing Uganda, in rooting our country. Of particular interest, and we have spoken about this particular interest, this particular investor in our previous press conferences, is this Italian called Pinetti Enrica. This woman has been given either on the orders or directly hefty contracts by Mr. Museveni. One such a contract is the construction of Lubowa Hospital. If you have visited Lubowa, which is more than roughly about 32 acres, that is public land. This woman came waving documents that she's going to invest 350 million US dollar, which is about 1.2 trillion shilling. That's the money she's going to invest in Lubowa. And then she asked the government to guarantee that she wants to go and borrow this money from the bank, come and invest it there, that please guarantee that you will pay. And of course, Museveni ordered his technocrats to sign. And they signed that first she will construct that hospital in a period of 48 months and run it for the next 8 years and hand it over to Uganda. During that period, Uganda will be making payments to her. And what has happened last financial year, which is ending in June, we paid Pinetti 340 billion shillings. That money we have already paid to this woman who said that she went to borrow. I don't think if you have given me 340 billion shillings that I will need to go to any banker to borrow to do what she has done there. So the agreement was that she borrows money, invests the money, and then we begin payment. But even before, just site clearing, we have already paid 340 billion. Shockingly, in this budget which we are processing in Parliament, Minister of Finance is requesting 319 billion shilling to be paid to the same Pinetti. The total value of her investment is 1.2 trillion. We have already given her 340 billion, but Finance has budgeted 319 billion shilling, which we will pay to Pinetti in the next financial year. Next financial year starts July 1st. We may even pay her July 1st. And you all have seen the work that is there. Of course, the government people say 25% of the work is done. All I see standing there is the crane. I don't see any building. Maybe the crane is part of the building. We've paid her 340 billion shilling, 319 billion budgeted for next financial year. And the country must understand that we are one of the countries that is borrowing heavily. The Minister of Finance, in the next year's budget of 47 trillion shilling, they have 16 trillion shilling, which they are calling treasury operations, money to pay for interest on money borrowed. Interest on money borrowed that we will pay next financial is about 7 trillion. And then we need to pay the principal itself. So the interest alone, 7 trillion. But also there is the money that we borrowed. It's like you're going to a money lender and you borrow 1 million and he says you bring it 2. So The 1 million extra is interest. So we are going to pay 7 trillion to commercial banks where we go and pick money to run government through treasury memoranda and bonds. And then the 8 trillion is to pay for the principal, and then we'll go back and borrow. The reason I'm bringing this, the money for Peneti, has been budgeted as treasury operation, money to help Uganda deal with its debt burden. That's why it is appearing. You will need to have asked our people here to give you copies of this. So the money, the 16 trillion shilling that is going to manage the debt next year includes many things, but most importantly, promissory notes. The promissory notes you can see in the last financial year, 349 billion is what we gave to Peneti, and now they want 319. So this you will see. This is from Minister of Finance, document submitted to Parliament. So this lady, the investor, I think she only walked herself here, and then Museveni said, oh, for us, we'll give you land and give you money to invest. Uganda is a very good country. That you are an investor, but you just come with your bag and they give you everything, land and money. So our view as FDC is that people are making this sort of investment ought to be aware that these things are being assigned when the country is at gunpoint under Museveni. There is very little that the country can do. As soon as Museveni is out of power, these are candidates for dishonoring these agreements and money. I don't see Uganda paying Peneti. In fact, what we will do is to issue an international arrest warrant for her to return our money when Museveni has gone. Because there is no way you walk into a country that is borrowing and the money to service a debt is 16 trillion, and you walk into a country's treasury and you pick 340 billion, and the same man continues budgeting for you money. So where did this woman go to borrow money? And the worker that is supposed to be in the war is not there. And I have told you that is part of the reason we pay interest of 7 trillion on money borrowed, because we borrow money to give to Peneti and others. That's what this government does every year. Go to commercial banks, pick bonds and treasury memoranda, get money, and then begin splashing. A country that is running a debt management fund of 16 trillion, you cannot afford just to play with money like we are doing. So we want to warn Peneti and other investors in the same category that please, you can do these things. Of course, for her, she has been a little bit smarter, that she wants these things done very quickly. Because if all the money is paid within 1 year, so by the time Museveni is out of power, she may have run away with our money. So what we will remain with is to issue an international warrant, international arrest warrant to get her, or to get our money back. We have, as I said, as if this, we simply have no problem with people coming to invest in Uganda, but we have a problem with investors of this category. And of course, this also goes to warn local investors in court, because I'm not sure they are investors themselves. People like Sudir. Sudir took over more than 10 acres of what used to be Shimon Demonstration School and Shimon PTC. Constructed there, I think it's a 12-floor building. Parliament alone on that building is paying 9 billion shilling per year. Parliament alone. 8 billion, Parliament occupies 6th floor for 8 billion. 1 billion is for parking. Can you imagine? Parliament is paying 1 billion shilling for parking. I mean, we are the first tenant to be charged for parking. That I rent your building, but you also charge me for parking. That's what Sudir is doing. 9 billion every year. 1 billion is for parking at Shimon. You can look at the agreements. But Parliament is not the only one occupying that building. There is the Ministry for East African Affairs. There is Equal Opportunities Commission. There is another floor of presidential advisors and many other government entities. So someone walks into public land dubiously, because the first time I personally said Sudir had fraudulently bought that land, there was an article in the New Vision, Sudir saying, I am a thug, he has no interest in that land at all. So from having no interest in their land to charging government, all these entities are paying what used to be public land. And Museveni said he had brought Al Walid to come and construct a hotel. Now we are paying. If you look at all the agreements that the government has signed with Sudir, it means you are going to be paying about 15 billion shilling. Let me tell you, if you give me 15 billion shilling, I will construct for you that house. If you give me 15 billion shilling, I will construct for you that house at land that is almost free. But these are the deals that Museveni is making, and we will not honor them. If Sudir is as smart as Penetti, he needs to take away all his money before Museveni collapses. Otherwise, we will have to recover Shimon and recover all the money. Because no country can accept it. That's what South Africa is doing with Gupta, who are allied with Zuma. So all these deals that Museveni has signed, it is just a matter of time that we will recover. So we want to warn all the other investors that please, it is okay to come and do business in Uganda. What we cannot accept is freezing of our country. Finally, one more issue is the abuse of the military. We welcome a suit that has been filed by lawyer Gawaya Tegule in the Constitutional Court, seeking declarations against Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, General Wilson Mbadi, and the Attorney General. So we associate ourselves as a party to that suit. The UPDF, the Constitution and UPDF Act are very clear. You do not indulge in politics when you are serving a military officer. And we have had a number of military officers court-martialed. Henry Tumukunde, Lieutenant General, was court-martialed 2005 because he made utterances while appearing on CBS and Radio 1. There are others along the way who have survived. Colonel Dr. KIZZA got court-martialed in 1999. David Ssemujju has been in court himself. So who is Muhoozi Kainerugaba to act outside the law? Because his conduct, the tweets he's been sending, and finally the statements he's made at birthday parties, the funding of those birthday parties will itself be a subject of investigation. Because we've been told this money has come from UPDF. Money was released to Muhoozi Kainerugaba as a commander of land forces, meant to do UPDF work. It has ended up financing parties. Because I think Museveni and his family think Uganda is such a very rich country that you can afford to throw party and finance them. So we are suffering because of many things, but there is money to fund Muhoozi Kainerugaba's. The same things. You need to look. I have provided you information regarding health. If you look at the budget of Ministry of Health, next financial year, we do not have money to maintain CT scans, oxygen cylinders, and other medical equipment at Regional Referral Hospital, where we need just 24 billion. Ministry of Finance and the Health are saying, no, we don't have that money to maintain those equipments. In Regional Referral Hospitals, Mbarara, Masaka, Iganga, etc. But there is money to pay Penetti. Ministry of Health has no money to maintain the medical equipment in the Regional Referral Hospital. And that's why people are going to be turned away. So you go to a Regional Referral Hospital, they tell you to go for a scan, a CT scan in a private hospital, and then bring the results to the government hospital. So it's the same way. Even when you look at the UPDF, UPDF has a lot of unfunded gaps. But Muhoozi Kainerugaba, one of the commanders, he has money for himself. The army where he's an employee doesn't have money. But the employee has money to throw parties around, one after another. And this is Uganda for you. So we think as FDC that Muhoozi Kainerugaba should be a candidate for court-martial, not a candidate for presidential elections. So this is where he should find himself. And if he doesn't, of course, he should also learn from the earlier warning we've issued to investors or fake investors. He is there to go and report for these crimes will come. And I think Mr. Museveni he owes it to his family. Draw a list of his property and share it with the family. Then the family will know that Uganda is not one of Museveni's property. That when he dies, Uganda is also to inherit. And I think that's what is disturbing Muhoozi. He thinks that Uganda is the property of his father. So when the father grows old and maybe you think he's about to die, you begin preparing to inherit Rwakitura, Kisozi, and Uganda. So he needs to know this, that this country is owned by 45 million people, not his father. His father can hold the country at gunpoint, but it's just a matter of time. Ask what happened to Gaddafi's children. They thought Libya was for their father, even issuing warnings. You saw what Muhoozi told Karamajong. Hell is coming to you. The one of Gaddafi told the people of Benghazi that you are going to come and spray you like an insect. They have the same mentality and language because there are guns all over their sitting rooms and bedrooms. So that's what Muhoozi thinks, that this is a part of our inheritance. So the dad has grown old. We must now begin positioning ourselves to take over. So Museveni, please, just compile a list of your property and share it with your family. When you do, they will stop dreaming that Uganda is one of them and therefore available to be inherited. That's all. We want to thank you very much. On this statement, we've attached the first document that has unfunded and unfunded priorities is a document of Parliament. It will show you where we are lacking money as a country. The first is rehabilitation of referral hospital. We need 24 billion shilling to rehabilitate regional referral hospital. It is not provided in the budget. Second, procurement of equipment for the same hospital, 12.3 billion, it is not there. We need to enhance the budget of Kawempe, these satellite hospitals under Mulago, 12 billion, government doesn't have it, 8 billion, sorry. Even money to pay for water and electricity in regional referral hospital, money to pay for electricity and water, it is not in the budget, 3.7. But the same budget has 319 for Pineti, this Italian investor. So the other items you can go and read. I have also included for you a list of the fund run by Minister of Finance. Every year, so this fund will give you details. It has contingency fund, it has treasury bonds, it has treasury interest on treasury bonds. So it's a summary of how we are going to be managing the debt in next financial year's budget. And that debt, please don't forget, includes promissory notes of Pineti, Enrica. So Uganda is going to borrow, because this is part of the debt management. So you're going to borrow to pay Pineti and begin paying interest on that money, waiting for the hospital. Maybe one day it will stand there. Thank you very much. If there are questions, I can take them.
Thank
Yes.
you.